you have been lied to. There's no rule that says a dog can't play basketball is not a good defense. I think it's very impressive that Buddy can do tricks, okay? I think that's very cool. Do I think that makes him exempt from the social contract? No. Air Bud is a 1997 film that really does not hold up. Buddy is timeless. But the children of yesterday have grown up into the open-eyed adults of today, and we can see clearly that Air Bud is not class conscious. My name is Sir Maxim. I am a hard-hitting, very serious, very professional culture critic and drag performer who has watched Air Bud and its sequels way too much, way more than any adult ever should. I have an English degree from a college with the word Texas in it, so I think that makes me more than qualified to deliver the world's very first Marxist critique of Air Bud. Let's do this. Before we jump in, I want to do a disclaimer that this is a Marxist literary analysis, so I may not have all the details of how dialectical materialism as it pertains to the actual real world. Baby, I'm an English major. I'm more versed in how it pertains to storytelling. So hardcore Marxists, settle down, and hardcore anti-Marxists, also you settle down. And hardcore Air Bud fans, you settle down too. Everyone just remain calm, okay? Calm down. So at the top of the movie, before we even meet Buddy or our protagonist, we meet our villain. His name is Norm Snively, and he is a cruel, abusive clown. Literally, like a clown by trade. Objectively, this guy sucks. But I think it's a very interesting way to open the movie with seeing that Buddy is currently being owned by this cruel, abusive owner. And although he objectively sucks, I think it's clear that he is a product of capitalism, okay? He is an obsolete entertainer who has to grovel for rich suburbanites. He is a physical manifestation of the rotten, jaded core of capitalism. You know, think the worker beneath the shiny capitalist logo, okay? This is him. The world has rejected him and his art, and this clown, who should be a symbol of joy, is instead a symbol of pain. And he's so bitter because he makes no money and literally lives in a dump. Like, a muddy, muddy dump. I think a very clear comparison we can make here is Squidward. Okay, he wasn't always like this, but when we meet him, this is what he's like. It's clear that he has endured years and years of torture in the capitalist machine, and now this is what he is. That does not mean his behavior is, okay, but it's interesting that Norm shows all the physical signs of being a villain. He is poor, he's angry, he literally lives in a dump, and a dump that is outside the suburban paradise. His car is beat up. This tells the audience people like this are bad. If you are a dirty, angry loner, you probably abuse dogs too. Really laying it on thick here. But really, he is just a victim of capitalism who, instead of trying to take down the system of capitalism that made him this way, he is just working within the system to try to make money and eventually try to take down this 12-year-old child. If the villain of Air Bud was instead like the mayor or like a CEO or like the owner of like a dog pound, I think that could make it more of like a, you know, little kid rises up against the man. But as it stands now, it's mostly just like little kid and angelic dog fight weird, angry clown loner. We just have to fight one man and don't question the system that made him the way that he is. Our protagonist is Josh Fram. He is a 12-year-old all-American child whose family just moved to a suburb called Fernfield, where everything is possible. Immediately, we see that this is the idyllic American suburb, and quite literally the promise of the American dream. Anything is possible if you work hard enough. Josh is a boy who struggles to make friends after the death of his father, who was a pilot who died in a plane crash. Josh's grandfather was actually a pilot in World War II, and Josh's father was, I guess, training to be a pilot as well. So clearly Josh is a victim of the American war machine that just uses citizens as fodder for global domination, leading to tragedy for American children, which is kind of ironic because the family is so important in American values, but America's own war machine results in the fracturing of that system. Because of all this, Josh, his mom, and his baby sister pretty much just have to suffer on their own. So Josh starts the movie with very low social capital. He is not popular, he is a nerd, he is bullied, he is a loner. So it's not until he meets Buddy that he gets a spark of passion in basketball and things start to turn around. So at first this is good. Buddy inspires Josh to better himself, to seek community, to seek hobbies. As Josh and Buddy start to practice enough, Josh becomes good enough to try out for the basketball team and actually get on the team. team. However, Josh is still bullied, still overlooked by the rest of the team. This is before he finds out that Buddy can actually play basketball. But the coach is extremely demanding. He values winning over teamwork. Basketball is a really simple sport. All you need is a ball and a hoop. You're good to go. Josh doesn't need money or privilege to play basketball alone or with Buddy, but the coach definitely makes this about winning and triumphing over other people. Obviously, winning cannot happen without losing, and losing implies failure, something you should be ashamed of. And I mean, it goes without saying that winning is such a capitalist mindset. I mean, our very own president is a capitalist final boss who is obsessed with winning. How many times do you hear people equate winning with getting a nice car, getting more money, improvement, houses, clothes, taking a very simple sport that can even be artistic, fun, recreational, just a ball and a hoop, and making it about winning, triumphing over other people. It's just a corruption of something very pure. Ergo, I hope I used that correctly, the coach is later found This is crazy. This is crazy. The coach is later found after a game throwing basketballs at a player who is not doing very well in the dark. The coach is screaming at this child who is crying. Luckily, the coach is fired. Thank God. But clearly this is the end result of the winning philosophy. Someone has to be on the bottom, and if you are a loser, you will be punished for that. This is clearly a very direct example of this, but maybe we can even think of a boss yelling at an employee, parents yelling at children who don't do well, or maybe just in general, society and capitalist infrastructure kind of putting the heel down on the labor class and making it feel like you can never catch a break. The kid's standards were not good enough, so the coach treats him like an animal and throws basketballs at him. Very bizarre. Whenever Josh sees that this player is mistreated, he and this player become friends. This shows the useful power in just shared collective class consciousness and shared trauma. So eventually, Buddy reveals to Josh that he can play basketball, and he even crashes one of the basketball team's games.
She's really good.
After that game, a girl comes up to Josh and tells him how cool it was that his dog can play basketball. The principal of the school also does this as well. And this marks the very moment Josh's social capital begins to rise. So many shows, movies, and everything use a girl character, often just completely nameless, to signal whenever a male character is like doing well, becoming more popular, succeeding. See how cool he is? This cute girl shows an interest in him. What's her name? What's her inner life? I don't care. He is no longer loser Josh Fram. Now he is Josh Fram with the cool, angelic, magical dog. And this is where the analysis gets real. Buddy is the proletariat. It is his labor, first under Norm and now under Josh, that elevates his owner from low social capital to high social capital. Powerlessness to high status. Now for Norm, he was never able to really elevate out of poverty, but the entire reason he made any money was because of Buddy. So Buddy was a unique commodity that did make Norm money, but for Josh, it's purely social capital. Either way, it's the same idea. Note that Josh doesn't really do anything different other than kind of play basketball a little bit better. But it is his possession of Buddy that makes him important. He possesses the unique capital that makes him extraordinary. If Buddy had not come into Josh's life, or Buddy could not play basketball, Josh would not be as important now. And because Buddy is literally a dog, remember that, he cannot really consent to the labor he provides for Josh. Obviously, he chooses to do it because he's having fun, but he doesn't necessarily know that it's his labor that is elevating Josh to a high popularity, higher social status. Does anyone ever ask what Buddy wants to do? No. No one has asked what Buddy wants to do, what Buddy would like, and the truth is, I know what Buddy wants. Buddy doesn't want to play basketball. He wants to have the ball.
What the dog is doing, he's trying to catch it like he would the tennis ball, but his teeth won't fit around it. So with a very light pass, you can see he literally is just trying to bite at it, and it's popping out of his mouth.
Buddy is opening his mouth and trying to catch the basketball. He is not trying to shoot it into a hoop. That's purely accidental. That's all an accident. And Josh somehow is able to use that, like striking oil in a field and becoming super rich. To me, it's like a carrot on a stick with a horse. Buddy is constantly given the ball. Buddy tries to grab it. He closes his mouth. The ball shoots away, and Buddy goes and chases it again. He can never actually acquire it. It is the constant work of almost acquiring it that produces the labor, produces the shooting hoops that make Josh so popular. It is a capitalist's wet dream. a worker who can never talk back and who is constantly chasing something they will never have, but they will never know they will never have. Due to the size of the basketball, Buddy physically cannot ever hold it in his mouth. Ever. So it is just a never-ending sisyphician. It's bad. He can't ever get it, okay? It's a false promise that raises Josh's social capital. Boom. I hope I sound smart. I feel smart. It's the promise of owning a home, becoming a billionaire if you just grind harder, wake up earlier, sacrifice more of your life and more of your time and labor for your boss. Maybe you can finally get what you want, the American dream here in Fernfield, where anything is possible. So viewed this way, it's kind of sick. Right? I mean, this is kind of sick. It's also sort of ironic that basketball is the subject of this movie. The other movies, have different sports. Football is one of them, baseball is one of them, and this kind of applies to those sports too, but especially with basketball, most basketball teams are owned by billionaires. To own a basketball team is to own an ever-growing asset and an exclusive status symbol. The basketball players do the work of grinding, training, practicing, playing, and suffering real injuries very often, especially in sports like football as well. The owners of these teams do rich people work and reap the benefits. Now, I'm not going to say that basketball players don't also make a lot of money and are very well off, but just think about it. The people who are owning the teams do not do the physical labor, yet they reap the benefits of the labor. Basketball is so ubiquitous because of how accessible it is. Truly, anyone can just get a ball and a hoop. You don't have to have any money. You can just do it on the street corner. You can go do it in your apartment complex. Anyone can play it at any time. None of this money necessarily had to get involved in it. But naturally, with capitalism, of course it did. Now, I want to make another point here that I also think is relevant, and that is Buddy is a great man. So this refers to the great man theory by Thomas Carlyle in the 1800s, which more or less basically says that history is not changed through sweeping social movements or, gradual changes, but instead it is changed by individual, extraordinary great men. It's a very individualistic idea, clearly also very American, very cowboy. And in this way, I think Buddy is a great man in Fernfield. He is changing the course of this town forever. As we can tell, Buddy is exceptionally talented. I mean, he can play basketball and he's a dog. I mean, I'm not going to overlook that. That is pretty damn cool. He is a unique commodity, and by owning it, Josh also becomes extraordinary. The great man is great, and whoever owns the great man is greater. And as we infamously find out, when you're a great man, the rules do not apply to you. I think the idea of exceptionalism is unfortunately very pervasive in this society. Billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, etc., who avoid paying taxes truly just because they think they don't have to. And oftentimes when you talk about taxing the rich, making the rich pay their fair share, a common argument against that is that they don't need to because they are smart, they worked really hard, they are at the top of the food chain because they earned their way there, as if it's all a meritocracy, which we all know is not correct. How many billionaires do we know skirt around the rules, tax loopholes, labor loopholes, because they think they can get away with it, because they can get away with it, because they believe themselves to be exceptional. Except in this case, Buddy actually does possess a remarkable skill that, in my opinion, would make him way more qualified to be a billionaire than pretty much any of the living billionaires today. Buddy would be the very first ethical billionaire. Mark my words. So, as I said before, Josh owns Buddy, who is an extraordinary, exceptional, hot commodity, and because of that, everyone starts to respect him again, which of course goes back to that ancient idea that people won't respect you unless you give them something. So the basketball team and the town essentially tell Josh that you don't matter to us unless you prove your worth. We will ostracize you unless you own an extraordinarily talented dog, in which case, now you're our king. So Norm eventually wants to get Buddy back now that he sees what a hot commodity he is. So again, rather than fight the system that caused Norm to be like this in poverty and bitterness, he would just rip a golden retriever away from a little boy. They are really making Norm look just ontologically evil at his core. If you want your character to come off as evil to the audience, honestly just make them be mean to animals or children. Both of which Norm is doing in this movie. And I get that, but I do think it's lazy. I think it would have been way more powerful if, again, Josh was fighting against some sort of system of power. Like, imagine hypothetically if the villain was instead the mayor of Fernfield, and the mayor wanted to take Buddy and use his talent to his advantage and try to get money out of it so they can get money to the town, and the mayor wants to like get him on TV, get him in commercials and stuff like that, basically just use Buddy for money without actually treating him very well. I think a plot like that could really have a discussion about exploitation of the labor class and talented artists. In this case, I'm considering Buddy a talented artist. Regardless, Norm steals Buddy and Josh steals Buddy back, and then he tries to get rid of him in a classic, get out of here, throwing rocks at him. We don't want you. Can't you tell I don't want you anymore? Like trying to do that kind of thing. It's really sad. If I was a child, I would have cried at that. But at the climax of the movie, there is this big basketball game. It's like the state game or something like that. And Josh's team is down like 2 points, 4 points, something like that. And then in comes Buddy, crashes the game. Everyone cheers. Josh's team is down to 4 members after their 5th member gets injured. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, we should just let Buddy play. And this is the meat of the analysis, okay? This is where I have some issues. So, the team says, we should let Buddy be our 5th member. Okay. The other team protests, no, he's a dog. Which is true. So the referee opens the handbook, he's looking through, he's like, well, there's no rule that says a dog can't play basketball. No. I don't buy that. Something isn't correct just because there isn't a rule against it. How is this really any different from loopholes around taxes and labor laws? Like whenever companies, outsource their labor to a cheaper country where they do not have to follow labor laws or don't have to pay their people as much. Is that right? I guess it's technically not illegal to do that, but does that make it correct? Obviously, I feel like if I was the writer of the handbook, I would not think to myself, by the way, only humans can play in this game. But whatever. So the other team protests, and then the coach of Josh's team says another infamous line that says, what's wrong? You're afraid you're gonna get beat by a dog? You know that dog can play basketball. That's not just a dog. That is literally Air Bud. That is the basketball playing dog. So the other team agrees. They're like, yeah, a dog can't beat us. Put him in. But Buddy is the unique commodity. Buddy is the extraordinary great man. Buddy is the exceptional talent. This is lying by omission, honestly. The other team should have been made fully aware that they were agreeing to a Deus Ex Machina basketball god champion being put on the other team. They didn't know that, especially the way the coach is like, oh, what, you're afraid you're going to get beat by a dog? He should have said, are you afraid you're going to get beat by the famous basketball playing dog? What do you mean we can't keep my doll in the living room? Are you really scared of a doll? Oh, by the way, now that you already agreed, I forgot to tell you, this is a haunted doll who kills people in the living room. It really reminds me of whenever you go to the polls and you are voting on propositions and bills that have such confusing language that you're reading it and you're like, I have no idea what this is. Our oppressors want us to be confused. They want us to lack the full context so we can't make decisions with the full context. And so then after we make those decisions, we are left on the hook because technically we agreed to something even though we didn't know the full context about it. It's like, okay, I guess I didn't read the part of the TikTok terms and conditions that says they have legal possession of my soul. All I'm saying is, it was dishonest. It was dirty. Okay? It was a dirty game, and I don't like that. Not that I'm defending the other team necessarily. I'm defending anyone who they would have been playing against. The other team in this movie does happen to be ontologically evil. One of the kids on the team is like this insane bully, and his dad is like this crazy, evil, rich man.
Nice shot.
You were a complete asshole to this child until you found out his dog can play basketball. But hey, nice shot. Well, like, of course you would let the team break the rules to have Buddy on the team. Of course, look at the other team. They're mean. What if the basketball team was playing against a team of 5 orphans, and then they tell the people, oh, what? You're so scared that our dog is going to beat your 5 orphans? And they're like, okay, yeah, I guess so. I guess our orphans can beat this dog. And then, of course, Buddy trounces all over them. I'm not saying that I want this specific evil team to win over Buddy's team. I just think it was dirty. It was dirty. Editing Max here. I want to elaborate on this some more. So imagine if Buddy was actually on the other team. It would be bad then, right? Yeah, we only like that Buddy is helping out this team because our protagonist, whose dad is dead, is on it. If Buddy was on the evil kids team, then of course we would be like, well, come on, this dog can't play basketball. It's not in the rule book that it's allowed. But because he's on our team, because he's on the sympathetic team, not the ontologically evil rich kid team, we're like, hey, there's no rule against it, so let's just go through this loophole. I really do think they had to make the evil team have an evil kid on it, and the dad is rich and the coach is mean. Like, they had to add all these characteristics to make us not want the team to succeed. This is the last time I'm harping on this, but the families of the students on the other team are probably pissed the fuck off, and they have every right to be. Like, hey, my kid isn't evil, my kid is not rich, my son's dad is dead too. What about me, huh? Piss me off. So obviously, Buddy joins the team and the team wins. Hooray, yay, everybody wins. This is not a movie about how teamwork overcomes impossible odds. This is not a movie about cooperation, helping you overcome a really difficult thing. No, it's about one extraordinary individual coming in and saving everybody. It's not about anything an average person could do. Sorry, if you don't have the magical dog, you lose. Sorry about it. Individualistic fan favorite cowboy defeats united band of skilled fighters through sheer talent and charisma. Air Bud. So after the game, Norm walks back over to Josh and demands Josh hand over Buddy, which he doesn't do, so then Norm takes him to court.
I'll see you in court.
Air Bud, 1997, the family-friendly dog basketball movie ends with a custody battle. So I want to be crystal clear here. I do not want Norm to have Buddy. Me as myself, I don't think Norm should have Buddy because he's cruel to him. However, within the bounds that the movie creates, Norm has a better case than Josh for keeping Buddy. Let me explain. Norm legally owns Buddy. He has the forms to prove it. They dissolved, but I looked it up. That doesn't mean he doesn't own Buddy. Okay, like legally, he still does own Buddy. And Josh has a clear opportunity to present evidence that Norm abuses Buddy, and he doesn't do that. He doesn't do it. It honestly would be the easiest thing in the world because every time they're even together, Buddy just whines and is sad and is upset. But no, the second Josh is like, well, actually, I don't know. I don't have any evidence for him.
Did you ever see him hit the dog?
Well,
Then how did you know the dog was abused?
Buddy's my friend. I know what he's feeling.
Literally all you had to do was prove that Norm was abusive to Buddy and you could have him. But hey, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because Buddy is an exceptional individual. And remember, the rules do not apply to him. The rules of basketball and of custody battles do not apply to Buddy, the magical, exceptional, great man dog. And we know that Josh's family does not have a lot of money. Okay, so maybe this is a case where if they did have a lot of money, they could have a better lawyer. So hypothetically, his low monetary capital could be putting his high social capital at risk right now because he can't afford a lawyer. But don't worry, that doesn't matter because Buddy is an exception to the rule. So this court case really is asking who gets to own the unique commodity that can skyrocket you into fame and success. Who gets to own the treasure chest you dug up in your backyard? Capitalism relies on exclusion, therefore one of these two people has to go without Buddy and has to go without that extraordinary commodity. Meanwhile, the other can continue to use Buddy's labor for their own benefit, monetary, social, or otherwise. In an ideal world, Buddy's labor could be shared communally throughout the entire town, or maybe even just for Buddy. But honestly, in a real ideal world, Norm would never have been so put down by capitalism that he would come out this bitter, cruel person who abuses this dog. And Josh would not have needed Buddy to become popular and successful. So I kind of understand where Norm is coming from here. In his job, everyone likes Buddy, everyone hates him, but he makes money through Buddy. And without Buddy, he makes no money. But in a world where we have easily accessible mental health care, physical health care, and possibly even a universal basic income, none of this would have happened to Norm, because what Norm really needs is rehabilitation and therapy. But I guess being publicly disgraced by a 12-year-old child and having your golden retriever illegally ripped out from under you is therapy enough. So, happy about that. Am I crazy? No, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I care about people's mental health, and Norm is a very troubled individual, and Period. Because Norm's legal documents dissolved in water, the judge cannot come to a decision. So the basketball coach of Josh's team stands up and walks to the front of the courtroom and says, "Why don't we let Buddy decide?" No. Okay, one, I don't think people are just allowed to stand up in court and walk over to the judge and say whatever. But two, the reason that this coach is allowed to do that is because he is, say it with me, an extraordinary great man. He is a famous basketball player for the Knicks that the judge recognizes and says, "Yeah, we can just do your solution. We can just do your solution." Now, a more sympathetic reading of this could be that this coach is using his fame for good to liberate Buddy from the hands of this cruel owner. I guess you could say that, but again, rubs me the wrong way. At this point, it's just all logic is out the window. I don't know what country these people are living in because none of these laws seem to hold up. Editing Max here. Even if we do look at it this way, that this famous basketball player is using his fame as a tool to help this dog, that doesn't change the fact that the judge only listens to him because he is famous, because the judge has a personal connection to this one individual. Hypothetically, if it wasn't just some lay person who wasn't a professional basketball player who left a mark on this specific judge in his youth, this suggestion would not have been acknowledged. So maybe that's the message of this scene. Go into professional basketball so you can possibly become a humanitarian and save a dog from his abusive clown owner. They all go outside the courtroom, and then Norm stands on one end and Josh stands on the other end, and they both kind of call to Buddy, and Buddy runs over to Norm and like throws him down, and then runs over to Josh, and everybody wins, and he picks Josh, and yay, everyone's happy. Although it may sound like it, I am not completely against this ending because Buddy does get to choose. And I was saying earlier, did anyone ask what Buddy wanted? I guess we did ask what Buddy wanted, I suppose. So I guess I should be happy. I'm happy. Whatever. I want to recap some of the themes we see at play here. Number one, we have exceptionalism. If you are special, you get to break the rules. And I think that's fucked up. It makes me think of Targaryen exceptionalism. Anybody else? It's the rule in the Game of Thrones books that means that the Targaryens are allowed to practice incest, even though it's illegal for everyone else in the country. Just because they are exceptional, they can control dragons, they're more important. It's a superiority complex. Then it also makes me think of billionaire exceptionalism. If you are rich enough, you can just work around the rules. Regulations and labor laws are ultimately just suggestions if you have enough money to either outsource your work to other places or just fight it in court. In general, I also think that patriarchy can bank on this as well, that men are allowed to not follow certain rules that everyone else is allowed to, women and children. And of course, it also makes me think of fascist leaders and that Supreme Court case a while back that said that the president can do anything as long as it's within his official duties or whatever. Number two, we have a theory of individualism. Rather than teamwork, cooperation leading to victory for the team, it is just one special, angelic god, Deus Ex Machina, Buddy, the magical dog. Ergo, teamwork is ultimately trumped by exceptional individuals. Number three is social capital. Josh starts very low before he meets Buddy, and then once he gains control of this extraordinary individual, he becomes massively popular. Now, Josh barely did any labor of his own. Once Buddy revealed his power of playing basketball, all Josh really had to do was take Buddy places and owned Buddy and be, related to Buddy. It kind of makes me think of the Met Gala. Now, I love looking at rich people in fancy outfits as much as the next guy, but we've had billionaires and crazy capitalists at events like this who are only there because they are seen as elite because of all the money they have, all the money they make from the labor that they themselves are not doing. Everyone goes to Jeff Bezos' wedding simply because what? He's rich. Of course, number four, we have repeating the cycle of capitalism. It really makes me think of the ending of Succession, where the pieces landed differently than you thought, and some people are in power now and some people lose everything, but when you stand far enough away, it's still the same system, just different people in different positions, but nothing ultimately changes for the people below the top. At some point, Norm was a freshman in clown school. Norm was not born, he was created. He was put through the ringer, and he came out the other side, and he just causes all this pain for Buddy and everybody involved, but Norm didn't come out of nowhere. If he didn't have to embarrass himself for rich suburbanites, would he be so bitter and angry and sad all the time? Probably not. If he didn't have to make money earn a living to survive, maybe he wouldn't be such a cruel person. At the end of the day, the film's moral is, if you're special, you don't have to follow the rules. That's what I got from it. I also got that, the relationship between a boy and his dog is brilliant and beautiful, and dogs are awesome, and sometimes you can find extraordinary gifts in the most unlikely of places, but in today's capitalist landscape, it's hard for me not to see this movie as honestly a dark omen. Sorry, if you're on a basketball team and you see a dog walk in on the other team, get out of there. Get out of there, save yourself the embarrassment, you're not going to win. Finally, I think some analysis around the film is just as interesting as within the film itself. Okay, so Buddy obviously is a real dog who really can play basketball, and he was trained to do so by his owner. His owner was actually working as a server over the course of several years as he was training Buddy to do this. He was also a writer, and it wasn't until Buddy was seen on America's Funniest Home Videos playing basketball that he was plucked from obscurity and they made this movie about him. To me, this shows that so much of success relies on luck and time and place. It's often luck and timing that can just catapult you into fame and success. It makes me think of game shows and also the lottery. Hitting the jackpot like this, both literally and figuratively, can be your ticket out of perpetual labor. I mean, for this guy, the owner of Buddy, it was his ticket out of being a server for the rest of his life. After recording this, I discovered more to the story of the owner of Buddy, Kevin DiCicco. So he owned and trained Buddy for years, and despite playing an active role in getting the story of Air Bud told, he allegedly did not get much of the profits. He had a falling out with the production company after the first movie and seemingly was not a major part of the sequels. He has writing credits on 11 of the films, but it's unclear if he has anything to do with the actual writing or if it's more of a based on the idea of situation. Of all the reporting I read about the situation, it does not seem like he had an active role in any films after the very first one. So I won't pretend to know all the details of production rights or contracts or even the interactions between Kevin and the production companies, so I'm not going to speculate on any of that. But just as a reminder, the Air Bud franchise has at least 15 movies attached to it, including the Air Buddies movies, the Santa Buddies movies, or Snow Buddies, or whatever. Also, there are the Pup Star movies. The entire franchise has grossed over $220 million, and none of that would be possible without Kevin DiCicco's work training Buddy and creating the idea. He didn't work in film or writing after this, and he lost his job during the pandemic and suffered medical issues that eventually led him to having to live in a homeless shelter around 2024. And eventually he moved to a hospice facility until his death in 2026 at the age of 63. Specifically, he noted suffering depression that resulted from homelessness, financial insecurity, and just general life stress, which I definitely believe. He did have a GoFundMe for a while, which got some money, and that's good, but it really does not sit right with me that the franchise that grew from this original idea of his made so much money, yet he didn't have enough money to live somewhere. I really didn't expect for this to be the way things went for Kevin after the first movie. I would have just totally expected him to live a stable life, coasting on at least some of the millions of dollars in profits. I was unsure whether to include this part of the story in the video, but it would feel incomplete if I just ignored it. I know someone could respond to this story with, well, that's just how business works. That's just how Hollywood works. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And that is such a cynical way to see this situation. It feels ironic because all the bootstraps American dream slop tells you that all you need to succeed is a good idea, hard work, and perseverance. But that is literally the opposite of the truth in this case. Kevin DiCicco had a lucrative idea, trained his dog while working at a day job, got his idea in front of the right people, and ultimately didn't receive the benefits while the companies did. I didn't make this video as a manifesto for Marxism. I really just thought it would be a funny way to look at the movie Air Bud, but you have to admit that divorced from the movie itself, the story of Kevin DiCicco is not the uplifting story we are fed under capitalism. Innovation and hard work are supposed to reward success, but who actually reaps the success in this story? If anyone really can make it, why do we hail billionaires as these unique one-in-a-million type men? Is it merit-based, or do you have to be a genius / magical basketball-playing dog? But Buddy and Josh pursue happiness, and they achieve happiness, and I guess that makes me happy too. They eventually go on to conquer every single sport. Buddy gets a wife, and he has a bunch of children. Robert Vince creates an Air Bud empire that still goes on to this day. So while I do think Air Bud is probably capitalist propaganda, it is nothing compared to Air Buddies.